Welcome to Everyday Tarot, your daily dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, healer, tarot enthusiast, and your local witch next door. And today I'm talking about the Six of Swords. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers daily insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every day, Monday through Friday, for fresh perspectives and empowering guidance from the tarot as interpreted by me. If you love the show, the best way to support it is by listening daily, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. For monthly hangouts, tarot Q&As, individual readings, and more, you can join the Everyday Tarot Patreon family. If you're local to the greater Puget Sound area, check out the Let's Talk Tarot meetup group for the latest event postings. If you're not local to my area, you can join me for a virtual tarot card creation event on Friday, June 20th at 5 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. I'll give you a list of recommended supplies, we'll meet online, and I'll walk you through the process of creating your own cards. Get the date on your calendar now and be on the lookout for the sign-up page coming soon. If you're interested in my free PDF with the 2025 5-card tarot spread I created just for you at the beginning of this year, you can get that by joining my newsletter list. My weekly newsletter always has the most up-to-date information on my upcoming events, presentations, musings, and more. If you don't already know, I'm a sex and relationships therapist, seeing clients virtually all over Washington State. I love working with queer, poly, and witchy clients who might be struggling with anxiety, chronic pain or illness, communication issues, self-advocacy, and sex. Book a free 20-minute consultation now to make sure we're a good fit to work together. And you can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or on my website, CamilleASaunders.com/everydaytarot, in addition to the images of the cards I pull. All right, so we are in season 8, where I'm talking all about the Suit of Swords right now, going through each card, one per episode. If you haven't listened to my other seasons yet, you can go ahead and check those out. Season 1 was all about tarot basics. Seasons 2 and 3 were about the major arcana and an overview of the 4 suits. Season 4, I went through tarot and pop culture. Season 5, I went through 13 common tarot spreads. Season 6 was the Suit of Wands. Season 7, the Suit of Pentacles. And like I said, we're in Season 8, where I'm talking about the Suit of Swords. If you want to hear an episode dedicated to an overview of the Suit of Swords, you can check out episode 37. And today we're talking about the Six of Swords. So if you have a tarot deck, go ahead and break it out. Look through and check out your Six of Swords in there and see what it looks like. So some common images or symbols associated with a card or anything related to moving or moving on, transitions, journeys, water, or trips. So I'm looking at 3 of the Six of Swords cards across my three of my different decks. So in the Sasarabito Tarot deck by Stasia Burrington, there's a lot, it's almost like it gives me like a grief image sort of, or like theme to it. It's like a person and they're underwater, and then just like their nose and mouth and eyes are like peeking above the water, like they're taking a breath. They aren't clothed under the water. Their hair is sort of flowing. They're sort of like gray, black, blue, dark colors. And then there's like these 6 swords that are coming up from the bottom of the card, almost as if the person's going to get like impaled on them, or it makes me think of those like medieval gates that would like come down on the like bridge part that would close the gate, and they would have sort of like spikes on the bottom of them. That's sort of the vibe it gives me. So it's a little eerie in this one. I'm going to see if there's any additional kind of information in the deck guidebook. Sadness, depression, overwhelm. A heavy, low energy card. You're passing time to pass time, feeling uninspired and overwhelmed. The spikes represent difficulty and discomfort from the past, but are still fully real in her head. On the card, she isn't actively struggling, but neither is she totally giving in to despair. So it's sort of this, like, again, this in-between, this place of movement or transition or going on a journey where we can see sort of the things from the past, and we're moving into something that's hopefully like better, but we're not quite there yet. It says things feel neither terrible nor great. Things may look bleak. She is still breathing and looking upwards. This card, often showing water, also suggests travel, perhaps a short trip, a change in location, change in scenery, and in ideas. This may be an opportunity for a rite of passage. So yeah, they called out water in there and trips as well. Um, Again, if we think of sort of the journey that you see through the major arcana, with the Fool being the beginning of the journey and the World being the end. The Six of Swords, when we think about each suit, is like a microcosm of that. So if you start with the Ace, and the 10 is often seen as like the completion, even though we have the sort of like royal or court cards at the end of the suit. Six, right, is like you're barely over the hump. You're right, again, like, okay, you're treading water, maybe like literally, right? You're not drowning, but also you're not like safely on dry land yet. Um, so that's kind of what I'm thinking about for this card. In the Desert Illuminations Tarot deck by Lindsay D. Williams, what's depicted is more of like a road trip vibe. Like we see a car, like the back of the car, like, and it's going down a highway. We're clearly in the desert. We see cactus. There's a giant kind of moon in the distance. We see someone driving. And then the daggers, which is how they depict the swords in this deck, are on like almost like on the, what would it be called? Like on the trunk of the car almost. And the license plate says New Mexico 66. So we have this like theme of sixes here across the card. And it also looks like the person's wearing one of those like, I don't know, old-timey scarves that you would wear on your head as a woman so that your hair didn't get like caught up in the wind, because this person is in a convertible and like looks like they're on a road trip or something like that. Like there's a lot of movement implied in this card here. But also like we don't really see them. We see just like the back of their head here. So I'm going to take a look at what it says in the deck guidebook. It says a giant full moon rises in the distance on Route 66, while a classic car detailed in daggers drives out into the unknown. The future is uncertain, but there are endless possibilities on the open road. This is a transitional card, ushers in something new while leaving behind the old. Although this can be upsetting, painful, and uncomfortable, it's important to look ahead to the future and embrace uncertainty with open arms. This card symbolizes movement, so you're headed in a forward direction no matter what. Leave behind what no longer serves you. It's time to evolve into the next phase. It's imperative that you don't pack your negative emotional baggage with you on this trip. So we sort of, right, stick with the trip metaphor there. It says, right, like don't bring everything. Like don't, right, just kind of bring the necessities. Don't bring all your emotional baggage, as it said. And then lastly, we're looking at the Therapist Who Tarot deck, prompts by Drea Bloom and images by Rebecca Bloom. So the image here, we see like a person, they look like they're in a canoe. There's these six like staffs, more so looking, like I wouldn't necessarily think of them as swords because they're all standing up with like flames or like the handhold at the top, and five of them are in the boat, but one of them is being used as like a paddle almost, or like those things that they would use like if you're in Venice in one of those boats in a canal, to sort of move you forward. And the word at the bottom of the card says movement, and then on the back it says, what is your relationship with creativity? Who or what has been your greatest inspiration, and where do you go to get inspired? So really this idea also of like that creative spark, like that we can talk about sometimes, like how do you find right inspiration? What is your relationship with creativity? And where do you go, right? What is the physical place where, or like that you might get inspired? I know for me, a lot of times that's like gardens. I love seeing other people's gardens, personal and professional gardens, and just getting to see how other people imagine things or create things. Um, but also it can be right like a mental place. Like where do you listen to music? Do you like what do you do to get to that place of where you are able to create or feel like you're in flow? So in the Library of Esoterica tarot book by Toshin, they talk about that this card is all about gaining a new perspective and abandoning old assumptions. The Six of Swords signifies moving away from difficulties through objectivity and positivity. Um, in the Fearless Tarot book by Elia Adam, they talk about Six of Swords as moving on. Again, there's a lot of the image that they show in here of the sort of traditional Rider-Waite-Smith card. Again, it's like a person. We see other people in the kind of canoe or like canal boat. And again, we see these swords that are in the boat and then also the sort of like staff that's being used to move away. But we see the back of the person. It says it represents moving from one place in your life to another. It can indicate, right, literal travel or changing careers or leaving relationships or moving. But it can also signify an elevation to the next level in your professional life. So it says the changes you're experiencing are for the best. It suggests that you go with the flow, right? That would be kind of the water aspect of this card instead of fighting the current. If you surrender to where life's momentum is currently flowing, you will speedily arrive at a safe harbor. Where is the energy of change flowing in your life? What destination do you have in mind? And what must you leave behind? So, right, there's this change coming forth that we're heading towards, right? Again, if you think about being in a boat going sort of downstream, right, you're going with the flow, it's pretty easy. And if you have to go the other way and try to fight your way back, it can be like, 2 to 5 times as much work as well. And that there is sort of this like temporary discomfort that is indicated in this card as well. Like maybe you're feeling unsure of your footing. Simple challenges can feel really big. A small inconvenience can seem like a lot of stress. But right, this card's really telling us that like we're headed in the right direction, right? We're taking our metaphorical boat to new shores. And it's an exciting time of movement. And it can also be this sort of like literal trip or journey, right? Maybe you're traveling, maybe you're just going to do something tomorrow or on the weekend that you have coming up, that there is this sort of like momentum to what you're doing. In the Tarot and Astrology book by Corinne Kenner, they talk about that the Six of Swords is associated with Mercury in Aquarius. It says, we don't normally think of quick trips to be life-changing, but when they take us across the river Styx, guided by a specter-like Mercury, they can be the start of a whole new existence. So again, that is sometimes what is depicted in the card, this sort of like people in a canoe. And I guess here they say like Mercury is the one sort of like taking you on this journey. Mercury is the god of short journeys. He's also a psychopomp, an escort, and a conductor of souls. The spirits of the dead would board his ferry, and he would shepherd them across the river into the underworld. Mercury himself could come and go as he pleased. He was one of the few gods who could enter and leave Hades at will. Aquarius is the futuristic sign of social groups and causes. When Mercury steps in as the ruler of the second decan of Aquarius, he maintains the broad perspective of the sign. Like the star, the card that corresponds to the sign, Mercury understands long-term visions and goals. And like the Uranian Fool, Aquarius's ruling planet, Mercury is unafraid of death and rebirth. The Golden Dawn designers of this card called Mercury in Aquarius the Lord of Earned Success, perhaps because it illustrates the final reward that awaits all of us at the end of our days. What else? It says in tarot. In a tarot reading, the Six of Swords often represents travel, particularly on or over water, which symbolizes short, life-changing journeys, boundary crossing, and divine guidance from one phase of life to the next. All right, and then finally, in the Tarot for Change book by Jessica Dorr, she speaks about that the Six of Swords is kind of about this like pattern breaking. Again, right, we're sort of moving away from maybe the things that we did in the past that maybe, right, aren't serving us anymore. And we find, right, sometimes when we're sort of looking at those patterns, like we find maybe these emotions that we've been trying to keep at bay. When we don't examine them, right, they can kind of fuel these other experiences, or like it can breed the suffering that can be happening. And it says this is why simply knowing a pattern is happening is often insufficient for actual change, right? You can recognize that, oh yeah, I've been doing this over and over in the past. It says usually we have to summon the willingness to feel something that we simply weren't willing to feel before. Awareness of a pattern is a great starting point. Once you've identified a pattern's happening, you can start to see where the fear is living. It's often at the exact location where the pattern could be broken. Each time you hit the edge of a feeling that scares you, you're at a crossroads with a choice to make. Either you can keep walking the well-worn path that allows you to avoid the thing you're scared of, or you can choose a new route. If you haven't cultivated the willingness and skill to engage with feelings that scare you, you're likely to take the same old route you're used to. It says, importantly, we rarely feel like breaking a pattern or doing a new behavior, right? Again, I think the sort of ironic thing about humans is that we have existed for so long because we are very adaptable. We can handle change, and yet often, right, it is the thing that we express the most dislike about is about change. We can kind of really enjoy our routines. And when we are forced to break from that or breaking from a pattern, sometimes there's a lot of emotions that come up around that, right? Maybe you're not in the mood to feel the fear, anxiety, guilt, or terror that tends to accompany new growth. These things are inherently hard to hold. It says, as artist Carolyn Lazard has written, the thing about pain is that it's pain. But Lazard goes on to say that pain is a generative sensation because it always, without a doubt, motivates you to get away from it and to end it by any means necessary. So as we think about this too, right, like we can think about the behaviors that sometimes accompany that pain and just like having I guess like a different relationship with it too. Because I think thinking about pain and discomfort, or someone that experiences chronic pain, it can be emotionally, mentally challenging for me to be willing to take on pain. That's definitely a journey I'm on, is right in other aspects or being willing to be uncomfortable or to be in situations that I'm not totally used to yet or I'm not super confident in, but that I really want to do and move forward with. Again, I'm thinking more like business, professionally, career of like, oh, I've never done that before. And I could just keep going, down this road and doing the same thing over and over. But I also enjoy the growth and kind of pushing myself in that way. And like, historically, I would say for my last like 10 to 12 years of experiencing a lot of chronic pain, right, pushing myself literally, right, like with my physical body was not always helpful. It didn't work really. And so it's sort of finding that fine balance between, yes, I don't just want to stay in like my comfort zone, right, like all the time. And like, that doesn't mean I need to also be in pain all the time, right? Pain, ideally, often is temporary, and we can forget that when we're in it. That can be one of the hardest things about it is that it can be so all-encompassing. Again, whether I'm talking about literal pain or like the discomfort of change and routine and lack of routine or moving from one thing to the next. But also like it can be a practice that we learn how to like become accustomed to small amounts of discomfort or sometimes large amounts if it's something that we really want to do in the future. All right, so on that topic, let's pull a card and see what they have to say on this, like I said, on this topic around like pain and discomfort, movement, right? We're moving, breaking old patterns, moving on from things that aren't serving us anymore, right? Again, like we're getting a breath of fresh air, we're going on a road trip, we're journeying across water, right? This is all the images I see in my cards in front of me right now, in the Six of Swords. So I'm going to ask the cards sort of, how do we do that? How do we set in some of that discomfort? How do we recognize when we have maybe reached the shore and it is sort of, safe to relax a little bit? And also, how do we not take all of our sort of emotional baggage and all of our trauma, maybe our patterns of the past with us. Okay, interesting. So I pulled the guide, and I'm pulling from The Citadel, a Fantasy Oracle by Fen Inkwright. And the guide says inheritance and correction. I'm going to look in the book and see what it says. So this is an oracle deck, so not tarot, but it's my newest deck, and I'm getting to know it, which I always find to be an enjoyable process. All right, so the guide, and it is upright, so I'm just going to read the upright version of the card. Beneath the thundering echo of a waterfall, a bell rings, clear and compelling, commanding the attention of all close enough to hear. Almost without thinking, you feel your feet turn you towards the waters and the figure beneath. The guide has inherited their position, and the path they walk has been predetermined. It is their role to correct the mistakes made by their predecessor and set things to rights. You're in a situation that isn't ideal, but it's up to you to make the most of it. Holding a grudge against what led you here won't achieve anything. It's time to accept the cards that you've been dealt. Once you're on the other side of this, you'll be better placed to reflect on what you've learned from the experience. But for now, it's time to put in some hard work and push through. So that seems very similar to our Six of Swords here, right? That like we're still on the road trip, right? We're coming to get a breath of fresh air from being underwater. We're traveling across this body of water, but we're not there yet. And this card's just sort of telling us, right? Don't try to bring all your baggage. Don't think too much about, oh, I'm trying to do everything differently or break all these old patterns, right? It's telling us that you don't have to think about, you don't need to reflect quite yet. That we're in this movement phase, but just to sort of focus on the work of it right now, right? Again, driving on the road for the road trip, right? Swimming to the top of the water to get a breath of fresh air, traveling across the water right now. Again, it can be kind of like, I was going to say a dangerous time, like travel, but I more just mean like it's intense, right? A road trip can be very fun, and also it's a lot of driving, and it's all new things, and you have to make a lot of decisions, and there's weather and roads you've never dealt with before, or you're in a convertible and then it starts raining, or just like you get a flat tire, right? There's just all sorts of things that can happen. And like often when we look back on it, at least for me, I'm like, what an amazing time. Even though, right, there were points during the road trip where I was freezing cold at night, or something went wrong, or we had to drive extra hours to get a hotel because they were all booked, or just like these different things. This card's saying, right, like you're doing the hard work, you're doing it, just kind of keep doing it for now, and soon we're going to reach the shore, and you're going to be able to look back, right, all the way across the water, or see where you came from, and sort of think about how you want to move forward in the future, or what, like, how you're integrating this new identity or part of yourself that you've learned about. All right, so links for the tarot decks I talk about will always be in the show notes and on my website if you'd like to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Just as a reminder, the podcast comes out daily, Monday through Friday for all of 2025. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.